Chapter 2. The fluorescent lights of Northwood High buzzed a familiar, dreary tune as I trailed behind the principal, Mr. Henderson, my backpack slung over one shoulder. It was my senior year, and the thought of navigating another year of mandated extracurriculars, forcing smiles at pep rallies I didn't care about, and generally doing the heavy lifting for my perfect older sister, Sophia, felt like a particularly dull song stuck on repeat. "And this is your new student, Alexander," Mr. Henderson announced, his voice booming slightly too loud, as if addressing a stadium instead of a hallway. And there he was, standing next to the secretary's desk, looking utterly out of place. He was tall, with a shock of dark, unruly hair that fell across his forehead and eyes the color of a stormy sea. He wore a simple, dark sweater that somehow managed to look impeccably tailored, and his posture was regal. Even in this drab, institutional setting, he carried himself with an ease that was both fascinating and intimidating. He offered a small, polite smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Hello," he said, his voice a low, smooth baritone with an accent I couldn't quite place. It was subtle, but undeniably there, a whisper of something sophisticated. "Alexander will be joining us for the remainder of his senior year," Mr. Henderson continued, giving Alexander a reassuring pat on the shoulder that seemed strangely out of sync with the newcomer's reserved demeanor. "And Emma Davenport here has graciously agreed to show him around." My stomach did a little flip. Of course, I had. Sophia, the golden child, the head cheerleader, the girl who could charm the socks off a statue, was conveniently double-booked with a cheerleading emergency that involved glitter and a misplaced pom-pom. Naturally, the task of entertaining the new kid fell to me, the less dazzling, more practical Davenport daughter. "It's nice to meet you, Alexander," I said, trying to inject some warmth into my voice. My own smile felt a little forced, a mirror of his. "The pleasure is mine, Emma," he replied, his gaze lingering on mine for a moment longer than necessary. There was a flicker in his eyes, something that hinted at curiosity, perhaps even amusement. "Right, well, I'll leave you two to it," Mr. Henderson chirped, already retreating. "Make sure he sees the gym, the library, and the cafeteria, Emma. And don't forget the drama club sign-up sheet," he winked. "You know how I feel about encouraging the arts." I sighed inwardly. The drama club. My sanctuary, my escape, the one place where I didn't have to pretend to be someone I wasn't. And now, I was supposed to use it as a recruiting tool for the new guy. So I began, turning to Alexander. "Welcome to Northwood. It's a school." I gestured vaguely down the hallway. "We've got the usual. Classrooms, lockers, questionable cafeteria food." He chuckled softly, a pleasant sound. "I'm sure it's quite the experience." "It has its moments," I conceded. "If you like synchronized singing during morning announcements and pep rallies that involve more shouting than actual spirit. Anything specific you're looking for in a school?" He raised an eyebrow, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "I'm not entirely sure. I'm new to this particular educational system." "Well, you've come to the right place for a crash course," I said, starting down the hallway. "First stop, the locker bay. Everyone needs a locker. Unless you're Sophia, of course. She's got 3, because apparently one isn't enough for her cheerleading accessories." Alexander followed, his step silent and measured. "Sophia is your sister?" "The one and only," I said, a touch of weary resignation in my tone. "She's the reigning queen of Northwood. I'm more the responsible understudy." We reached the cavernous locker bay, a symphony of clanging metal and shouted greetings. I pointed out a row of empty lockers. Those are usually reserved for new students or those who have lost their combinations for the 10th time. He tried a lock, his movements surprisingly adept. A practical system, he observed. You've clearly never dealt with the Northwood locker bureaucracy, I countered. It's a labyrinth. Come on, I'll show you the library. It's the only place in the school where you can find actual quiet. As we walked, he asked questions, intelligent questions about the school's curriculum, the extracurricular activities, even the student body's general disposition. I found myself answering more freely than I usually did, a little surprised by his genuine interest. He didn't interrupt, and his eyes seemed to absorb everything I said. It was refreshing. So, what are your interests, Emma? He asked, as we entered the hushed silence of the library, the scent of old paper and floor wax a comforting balm. I sing, I said, blurting it out before I could overthink it. And I'm in the drama club. It's my thing. His expression shifted, a spark of genuine interest lighting up his features. You sing? Professionally? Oh, no, nothing like that, I laughed, a little embarrassed. Just for me, and sometimes for obligation at school events. I gestured to the sign-up sheet tacked to a bulletin board. Which is why Mr. Henderson roped me into this. He wants more people in the drama club, and I'm apparently the designated recruiter. Perhaps I could be persuaded, he said, his voice soft. What kind of music do you enjoy singing? Everything, really. Musical theater, some folk, a bit of classical. Whatever catches my ear. I found myself talking about my passion, the one thing that truly made me feel alive, and it felt surprisingly easy with him. We moved on to the cafeteria, a chaotic expanse of plastic tables and lukewarm food. I pointed out the different food stations with a mock dramatic flair. On your left, the Mystery Meat Monday special. To your right, the Salad Bar of Sadness. And straight ahead, the legendary pizza of questionable origin. He watched me, a genuine smile finally gracing his lips. You have a flair for the dramatic, Emma. It's a side effect of being in the drama club, I said, winking. And of being forced to endure this place for 4 years. As the tour continued, a small group of Sophia's cheerleading friends spotted us. Sophia, of course, was at the forefront, a whirlwind of pink and blonde hair. There you are, Sophia called out, her voice bright and effervescent. She marched over, her friends trailing behind like a flock of well-groomed birds. Who's this? Her eyes, the same shade of blue as mine but far more vibrant, landed on Alexander, and a flicker of something unreadable crossed her face. Sophia, this is Alexander. He's new, I said, already bracing myself for Sophia's inevitable charm offensive. Alexander, hi. I'm Sophia Davenport, she said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. Emma's my sister. I'm so sorry she's been stuck showing you around. She can be a little intense. She winked at me, a gesture that was meant to be playful, but felt like a subtle jab. Alexander took her hand, his grip firm. It's a pleasure to meet you, Sophia. Emma has been most informative. Oh, I'm sure she has, Sophia purred, her gaze sweeping over Alexander, taking in his understated elegance. Well, if you need anything at all, just ask me. I know everyone here. Thank you, Sophia, Alexander said politely, without giving anything away. As Sophia and her entourage moved on, leaving a trail of glitter and perfume, I turned back to Alexander. Sorry about that. She's very into making connections. He met my gaze, his stormy eyes holding a hint of something I couldn't quite decipher. I gathered. She seems very popular. She is, I agreed, the words tasting a little like dust. She's got the whole golden child thing down pat. Everything comes easy to her. And to you? He asked, his voice quiet. I shrugged. I get by. I sing. I do my homework. I try not to get too involved in the social hierarchy of it all. As the day wore on, and the bell rang for lunch, I found myself looking forward to our next interaction. Alexander was unlike anyone I'd met at Northwood High. He didn't seem to care about the superficialities that consumed most of the students. He was observant, intelligent, and possessed a quiet dignity that was captivating. His quiet question, "And to you?" hung in the air between us, a stark contrast to the clatter of the cafeteria. For a moment, I was disarmed. No one ever asked me that. It was always assumed that things were just harder for me, the B-side to Sophia's chart-topping hit. I offered a small, non-committal shrug. Things come to me if I work for them, I finally said, the honesty of it surprising even myself. It's fine. I prefer it that way. Builds character, or so I'm told. He watched me, his stormy eyes seeming to see right through the flippant remark to the weary truth beneath. I understand the value of character, he said, his tone low and serious. It was a strange, old-fashioned thing to say, but coming from him, it felt profound. The shrill bell signaling the start of the lunch period jolted us back to the present. The hallways flooded with students, a chaotic river of bodies and noise. I instinctively braced myself. The cafeteria awaits, I announced with a theatrical sigh. If you're brave enough. He followed me into the sprawling, deafening room. It was a perfectly sectioned diorama of high school life. The jocks held court at the long tables by the windows. Sophia and her cheer squad occupied the central territory like a conquering army, and my friends from the drama club were tucked away in a corner booth, a small island of black hoodies and dramatic gesticulating. As if summoned by a sixth sense, Sophia spotted us. She waved an imperious hand, beckoning us over to her table. Alex, Emma, over here. I felt a familiar clench in my gut. Duty calls, I muttered to Alexander. Prepare for interrogation about your favorite color and star sign. But as I started to shuffle toward Sophia's table, I realized Alexander wasn't moving. He was looking at my friends in their corner booth, a flicker of genuine curiosity in his eyes. Actually, he said, his voice easily cutting through the din, if you don't mind, I'd rather not. He gestured with his chin towards my friends. Your island looks far more interesting than the mainland. I stared at him, momentarily speechless. No one ever chose the drama club corner over Sophia's table. It was an unspoken rule of the Northwood social ecosystem. I watched Sophia's perfect smile falter for a microsecond as she registered the blatant rejection. Are you sure? I asked, a grin I couldn't contain spreading across my face. They bite. I'll take my chances, he said, the corner of his mouth tilting up in that subtle, devastating smile. Walking towards that booth felt like a small victory. My friends looked up as we approached, their expressions a mixture of surprise and suspicion. Guys, this is Alexander, I said, sliding into the worn vinyl seat. He's new. Alexander, this is Liam, our perpetually unimpressed stage manager, and Chloe, who knows more about Shakespeare than Shakespeare did. Liam gave a curt nod, his eyes scanning Alexander's expensive-looking sweater with a cynical air. Chloe, however, offered a small, shy wave. So you're the new guy Emma got saddled with, Liam said, straight to the point as always. I've been told she's the most informative guide, Alexander replied smoothly, taking a seat beside me without a hint of awkwardness. He didn't seem fazed by Liam's bluntness or the cramped space. He simply belonged. Over the course of lunch, he listened more than he spoke, asking Chloe about her thesis on Hamlet and discussing lighting techniques with Liam with an unexpected depth of knowledge. He never once mentioned where he was from, skillfully deflecting any personal questions with a charming counter-question. By the end of lunch, even Liam looked grudgingly impressed. Later that afternoon, I headed to the auditorium for drama club. The air inside was thick with the scent of sawdust, old velvet curtains, and the faint, electric hum of the stage lights. This was my haven. I saw Alexander lingering by the doorway, looking hesitant for the first time all day. You don't have to stay, I told him, dropping my backpack by the front row of seats. I'm sure you have better things to do than watch us run blocking exercises for a Chekhov play. On the contrary, he said, stepping inside and letting the heavy door swing shut behind him, sealing us in the quiet dark. I can't think of anything I'd rather do. He took a seat in the shadows of the back row as our director, Mr. Davison, put us through our paces. I tried to forget he was there, losing myself in the rhythm of the lines, the familiar comfort of being someone else for a little while. At the end of the rehearsal, Mr. Davison asked me to stay behind to run through the solo for our winter showcase. I stood alone on the vast, empty stage, the single ghost light casting long, dancing shadows. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was one thing to sing for myself, or even for the cast, but knowing Alexander was out there, a silent observer in the dark, felt different. It felt important. I took a deep breath and began to sing. It was a melancholy folk song, full of longing and quiet strength. The first few notes were shaky, but then the story took over, and my voice filled the cavernous space, echoing off the empty seats. I poured every ounce of frustration, every moment of feeling overlooked, every secret hope into the melody. For those 3 minutes, I wasn't Sophia's sister or a tour guide. I was just a voice in the dark. When the last note faded, the silence that followed was absolute. It stretched for a long, breathless moment. Then, slowly, a single figure emerged from the back row. It was Alexander. He walked down the aisle until he was standing at the foot of the stage, looking up at me. The ghost light illuminated his face, and his expression was one of rapt, unguarded awe. That was, he started, then paused, searching for the right word. That was magnificent, Emma. It wasn't a compliment. It was a statement of fact, delivered with a sincerity that made my cheeks flush. Thanks, I mumbled, suddenly feeling exposed. I like the song. You do more than like it, he said, his voice soft but resonant. You understand it. You sing as if it's the only language you truly trust. His perception was so sharp it stole the air from my lungs. He saw me. In a way no one, not even my family, ever had. He gestured back towards the bulletin board in the hallway. That sign-up sheet Mr. Henderson mentioned. Is it too late? For drama club? No, never. We walked out into the now empty hallway. He pulled a pen from his pocket, a heavy, elegant fountain pen, I noticed, and moved to the bulletin board. He signed his name with a fluid, confident script. I leaned in to see. Alexander Anne Marie. The name was unusual, formal. Anne Marie. It sounded almost regal. That's your full name? I asked, testing it out. It is, he replied, capping his pen with a quiet click. A flicker of something unreadable, almost like caution, crossed his face before vanishing. A bit of a mouthful, I know. That night, propelled by a curiosity I couldn't shake, I sat at my laptop and typed Alexander Anne Marie into the search bar. I expected to find a Facebook profile, an Instagram account, maybe a mention in a school newspaper from wherever he'd come from. The search engine returned its results. Your search Alexander Anne Marie did not match any documents. I tried variations. Alexander A. Marie. Anne Marie family. Nothing. It was as if he didn't exist online. In this day and age, for a teenager to have zero digital footprint was more than unusual. It was practically impossible. Unless, of course, someone wanted it that way. I leaned back in my chair, the glow of the screen illuminating my thoughtful face. The tailored clothes, the subtle accent I couldn't place, the fountain pen, the strangely formal name, and now, this digital ghostliness. Alexander was more than just a new student. He was a puzzle, an elegant, intoxicating mystery. And I had the unnerving, thrilling feeling that I was the only one in Northwood High who had even begun to notice the missing pieces.